10 out of 10 Game of the Year. After a 6-year drought, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is finally here, and it is an absolute heater. In 2017, we saw Breath of the Wild completely annihilate the video game industry, creating one of the most beautiful and exciting open worlds gamers have ever seen. The feeling of exploration was exhilarating and rewarding, so much so that when a direct sequel was teased in 2019, the community went bananas. And then, nothing. For literal years, Nintendo decided to implement their winning marketing strategy here and gave us no information on the game until E3 2021, originally confirming a release date in 2022 before pulling a legendary prank and postponing it a full year. This ended up being the right move though, because the game that we finally got was something truly special. Being a direct sequel, Tears of the Kingdom takes the open world framework established by Breath of the Wild and turns it up to 11, bringing us back to a Hyrule going through a period of restoration a few years after Link stomped the Calamity and saved Zelda. Despite the similarities, this game is outrageously dense, bringing back some of the best concepts from the original while adding an absurd amount of new mechanics and areas to explore, to the point that it can almost be overwhelming. The world is so alive, filled to the brim with goofy characters and secrets to discover. You can spend hours just gallivanting around the map and experimenting with Link's new abilities. What really defines this game though is the level of freedom and creativity that we really haven't seen up to this point, constantly challenging the player to solve puzzles in their own unique ways. From the perspective of completion though, Tears of the Kingdom is a fucking monster. Honestly, only an actual idiot would go through the process of 100%ing this gigantic game. And now that I did, I thought I would use this video to document my experience completing the game and to celebrate a multiple 100-hour, eyeball-bleeding journey finally finished. If you're an imbecile like me and love seeing that tasty 100%, take a listen to hear my honest thoughts on the game and my process going through everything you need for full completion, including the rewards you'll receive once you do. Tears of the Kingdom improves on its predecessor right off the bat by actually having a story driving the player forward. Now, a lot of longtime fans will disagree, saying that this game essentially follows the same storytelling formula as Breath of the Wild, blah blah blah. Are you out of your mind? Despite having the same delivery, I really think this game has an incredibly exciting narrative to tell, with so many beautiful moments and subversion of expectations throughout the playthrough. In Breath of the Wild, we know exactly where Zelda and Ganon are and exactly what we need to do in order to get there. In this game, however, things aren't as clear. So a lot of the events that take place involve Link and the player figuring out what happened, driving them towards defeating Ganondorf in the end. This contrast is thrown at you as soon as you fire up the game, giving us one of the absolute coolest opening sequences in a Zelda game hands down. Link and Zelda are exploring an ominous tunnel located deep under Hyrule Castle, with this haunting music slowly building in the background as they descend further in. They eventually reach the imprisoning chamber, where we see Ganondorf's revival shattering the fragile Master Sword and sending the castle into the sky while Zelda gets banished to the Shadow Realm. There is so much tension and impact here, already establishing this heavy atmosphere that lasts throughout the entire game. Immediately after though, you find yourself on the Great Sky Island, a quiet, serene landscape that eases the player out of this tension and into the world itself. Link wakes up to a mysterious voice and a decayed Master Sword, guiding him to the Temple of Time, where he learns that his arm was replaced by a spirit named Rauru in order to save his life. From here, you get to explore another masterclass in video game tutorials, functioning as a fully open playground to freely experiment with the new mechanics, seamlessly introducing the game's nuances without forcing the player to do it in a scripted way. It feels a bit more linear than the Great Plateau, but this is still one of the best tutorials in video games because the developers understand how players learn the most from experiencing things themselves. Tears of the Kingdom does this over and over again, bringing these characters and world elements to life, expertly connecting them, and inviting the player to push the boundaries of the innovative mechanics. What's sad though, is that after this thunderous opening, they go and fuck it up with the 4 Phenomena main quest. After talking to Pura in Lookout Landing, the main hub throughout the game, you learn that each region across Hyrule is experiencing some strange shenanigans following the upheaval, and examining each location might give us clues into Zelda's disappearance. This is where Tears of the Kingdom story starts to develop some real chimp-brained low points.
Demon King? Secret Stone?
Secret Stone? Demon King?
Demon King. Secret Stone.
Nintendo really utilized the copy and paste tool pretty masterfully here, forcing us to watch the same dumbass cutscene 4 times, recycling the same bumbling, uninteresting champions from Breath of the Wild, and still failing to develop them in any meaningful way. The 4 characters that help you throughout each of the introductory dungeons eventually learn that they are descendants of ancient sages who, after receiving a secret stone, unlock their potential and pass their vows on to Link. That's it. Outside of these main quests, they serve no more significance to the plot until the very end of the game, which is sad because we've been shitting on this framework for 6 years now. Teba takes over as the new village chief, so we instead hang out with his son Tulin, who's just a little fucker. His character is just so annoying and cliche. Yunobo is still a bumbling clown, starting his own company just to get his entire race of rock people hypnotized, slobbering over some expired rock roast. I feel like Riju doesn't even really go through any notable changes. She's just kind of still the Gerudo chief and still can't use her lightning powers very well after literal years. Sidon is my favorite, actually getting a bit of love seeing his relationship with his father and watching him eventually crowned as the new Zora King. But despite some of these peanut brain decisions, I think the story really starts to shine when you discover the Dragon Tears located all around Hyrule, and learn about what happened to Zelda after she traveled 10,000 years back in time to witness the imprisoning war. They create this unique narrative of Link and Zelda working together in 2 different worlds, adding a level of depth that the game desperately needed at this point. I also love how the Master Sword plays a much bigger role in the story, essentially acting as the key to defeating Ganondorf, and geez Louise, good gravy, man. The process of obtaining it in this game doesn't even compare to the rest of the series. If you somehow haven't gotten around to doing this, you are in for a treat. The sequence is so unique and exciting, fitting seamlessly into the central conflict. It absolutely blew my mind. The biggest challenge, however, is that the order you do things has a pretty significant impact on the way that the story is experienced. You can find all of the tears as soon as you land in Hyrule, spoiling most of the build up to the finale, or skip them entirely and assume that this game is another uninspired mess. I ended up focusing on the 4 phenomena first, then getting the Master Sword before finishing all of the Dragon Tears and viewing the final memory. And I think this was an incredible way to experience the game. Anyone saying this game doesn't have a story is a complete imbecile, because they must have missed one of these key moments. I'm curious to hear your thoughts though, because everyone's experience will likely be a bit different depending on how you play. That's enough of the riffraff though, because it's time to talk about some real characters now. Zelda is known for consistently having some of the most creatively written, goofy characters, and I think that this is done so well in Tears of the Kingdom. My personal favorite is Addison, because he is the most loyal character in the game, traveling around, displaying Hudson Construction's noble signs across the kingdom. I love how he shits his diaper every time Link helps him prop up one of his signs, which you have to do 81 times in the game, by the way. Manny from Hateno Village is another winner. He valiantly monitors the gate all day long to protect the village from threats, while still having some time to scope out the beautiful ladies. And finally, I have to shout out Pen, because I absolutely love this character. Pen is OP because he is a pelican, and is constantly hearing chirps and warbles about Zelda's location, completely blowing them out of proportion every single time. He also has this really cool catchphrase he says every time he flies off. We gotta talk about the soundtrack. Zelda games always have an incredible score, invoking a wide range of emotions from the diversity of the music, and this game comes in hot, firing off some real heaters. On the surface, it's soft and simple, immersing the player in the vast open world without taking away from the sense of exploration. Then you jump into the depths, and you have this loud, blaring horn leading to an eerie, tense soundscape. My favorite implementation of the music is in the dungeons, where the music starts out very somber, but as you progress through the puzzles, slowly builds, incorporating the motifs of the region. This works so well to reflect the player's progression leading up to the climactic boss battle at the end with this incredible orchestral arrangement, adding to the spectacle and impact. The entire score just comes together so well in the context of the world, paralleling the difference in atmosphere across all the environments. It's just so good. Tears of the Kingdom's design is built heavily on the idea of experimentation fueling creativity, which is expressed primarily by Link's new abilities. Ultra Hand is probably the first one you'll unlock in the Great Sky Island, and it is completely broken. I mean, there was absolutely no balance put into this power whatsoever. Right out of the gate, you are free to use it however you want without any limits or progression outside of the materials you have available to you, and almost all of the time they are. Naturally, it's the ability that defines the main premise of the game, creativity, truly shaping the way that you interact with the expansive world, the methods used to solve puzzles, and even the way that you approach combat. This is hands down one of the coolest, most unique and unbalanced, straight up bonkers abilities in video games, period. I also love how this one aspect of the game created such an expansive community, pushing the limits of the crazy things you can do with this power and bringing so many different people together. My feeds are still flooded with people going up to Koroks and doing more forbidden things than fucking human transmutation in Full Metal Alchemist. Fuse is the other flagship mechanic introduced in this game, having applications primarily in combat. This ability is just as free and expansive as Ultra Hand, allowing you to fuse essentially anything to anything. You can fuse weapons, materials, random junk scattered across the world. There is almost a limitless amount of possibilities to explore, effectively allowing the player to add almost any effect onto any weapon. This ability is especially important as, following the upheaval, almost all weapons are decayed, severely decreasing their base attack power. You are essentially forced to be creative with the way you use Fuse, primarily mid to late game to be dealing enough damage. I love how much this encourages creativity in combat, and provides a very tangible value and reward to the ability. Ascend is used pretty much just for traversing the world, reflecting the intense verticality of the new Hyrule. You can pop this bad boy out anytime you have a ceiling or platform above you, as long as it's not too far away. A fun fact is that this ability was initially used as a debug feature the developers can implement to make exiting caves not a complete pain in the ass, and ended up making it into the game because Aonuma likes cheating. Sometimes. Finally, to be completely honest, I didn't use Recall too much during my gameplay. The applications for this ability are really for platforming, while also being a unique way to cheese puzzles if you want to. It's relatively weak for combat, and I think it's very much overshadowed by the other three abilities, but it's still a flexible power that can be used in creative ways. There was clearly so much detail and care put into these abilities. I honestly don't understand how Nintendo created such open-ended, fun mechanics that work so well with the game's physics, when other games are floundering just trying to function without completely short-circuiting the Switch's archaic hardware. The combat, however, is pretty much ripped directly from Breath of the Wild. Fundamentally, there aren't really any changes, just enhancements from Link's new abilities. You got your standard weapon classes, your one-handed swords, two-handed swords, spears, rods, and bows, but the ability to fuse pretty much anything to all of them makes the combat much more exciting and diverse. Alright, let's address the elephant in the room here. Durability is back, baby, and it's as donkey-brained a concept as ever. Kind of. On paper, the fuse mechanic was meant to mitigate some of the bullshit caused by weapon durability, but I feel like everything still breaks after a few extra hits. I can acknowledge the logic of this mechanic, meant to encourage experimentation with different types of weapons and fusions, but it happens too goddamn often. This system naturally creates hesitation, forcing players to stockpile rare weapons for a more important moment that will never come. On top of that, you're basically forced to hunt a crazy amount of caca to increase your inventory, to the point where you won't run through all of your weapons on a single idiot Lionel. I wish they were more intelligent with this system, making an easier way to restore durability without the need for farming Octoroks, or implementing a system to strengthen base durability, or honestly anything. Since Tears of the Kingdom is a direct sequel, the game takes place in the same world as Breath of the Wild, which is both the most exciting part of the game, as well as the most controversial. Because of this, a whole legion of baboon people have been trashing the game for being too similar and lacking the distinction to stand on its own. While I can understand this thought process, I personally think Nintendo's decision here is a pretty logical one. The developers wanted this game to be as accessible as possible, letting returning players discover changes to a familiar world, while giving new players a chance to experience it for the first time. This alone would not be enough to warrant a new game though, so Nintendo decided to focus on the concept of verticality, adding both the Sky Islands and the depths. For something so heavily marketed in the trailers leading up to release, the Sky Islands make up a pretty small portion of the map. Although breathtaking to explore, the sky is essentially just an array of small, spread out islands that contain simple, often repetitive puzzles. There is a sense of euphoria, running around the surface and seeing these structures floating up above, eventually reaching them and flying around from one island to the next, but for me this feeling went away pretty quickly throughout my playthrough. The depths, on the other hand, are fucking big! Seriously, diving down here and taking in the scale for the first time was such a cool experience. Learning that the depths are literally the same size as the surface map made my balls actually fall off of my body. Not only that, but they were absolutely terrifying. I spent so much time stubbornly gallivanting down here, getting completely destroyed by the aggressive monsters and gloom, filling my diaper every time I ran into a Frox or an armored Lionel. Like, what? There's something so exciting about exploring a place with such a contrasting atmosphere to the rest of the game. Despite the size though, there is a lack of variety that made my excitement start to dwindle, especially during the slog of finding all 120 light routes down here. What I think makes the game work as a whole is that you can cycle between all of these areas anytime. You're not forced to go anywhere, so getting tired of one area encourages you to go explore another. The world remains fresh because every aspect of it works together, seamlessly connecting the sky to the surface to the depths, without any load screens or transitions to break the player's immersion, resulting in an experience that feels alive and real. This seamlessness extends to the dungeons as well, linking them directly to the environments you explore. I'm honestly conflicted about the dungeons. They're this hybrid between the classic Zelda dungeons that we love and the dumbass divine beasts from Breath of the Wild, putting them in this weird place for me. The theming of each is awesome, being spread between the 3 maps with some incredible designs and interesting puzzles, but they still don't capture the charm of the classics. There are no maps, no compasses, no keys, just reskin terminals that function the same exact way every time, fundamentally killing the distinction between them, outside of the Spirit Temple, I guess. I always ended up enjoying the quest to the dungeon more than the dungeon itself, like platforming on the flying ships in the Wind Temple, or the low-gravity waterfall puzzles of the Water Temple. My favorite ones were the Fire and Lightning Temples, both being these huge, towering structures with unique mechanics for solving the puzzles. The Lightning Temple quest actually let me live out one of my longest dreams, getting to lead a squadron of Gerudo women in a battle against an army of monsters. I mean, game of the year. And the Water Temple sucked. Speaking of sucked, the abilities you unlock from completing the dungeons are one of my biggest complaints about the game. This has to be the clunkiest, most infuriating mechanic. Honestly, the sages are the biggest fucking dumbasses I have ever seen. They're constantly just wandering off, forcing you to have to run over to activate their powers. Their AI is so unintuitive and broken, I ended up benching them as soon as I finished the dungeon, only subbing in Tulin to glide. I would have much preferred Link being granted the power himself, versus relying on physical summons that force you to cycle in and out of the menu, causing your Switch to shit itself anytime more than 2 are activated at once. Tears of the Kingdom's world is a world worth exploring, but if you're going for 100%, you will want to remove your eyeballs from your face hole. There is so much content in this game, it is honestly absurd. You have 5 main dungeons, the Skyview Towers, the Shrines of Light, 152 of them, caves and wells, various armor sets, great fairy fountains, hundreds of side quests, Hyrule Compendium. This game never ends. But all of this is nothing compared to the most evil, sinister, downright abominable collectible in the history of video games. The goddamn Korok Seeds. These little motherfuckers are back, and we once again have to collect all of their caca in order to achieve our 100% dreams. Breath of the Wild had 900 of these rat bastards, but the good news is that Tears of the Kingdom instead has 1,000, because the developers want us to be sad and play this game for the rest of our lives. Korok Seeds are primarily used to upgrade inventory slots, but they also count for a large portion of the map completion percentage. The puzzles are mostly the same as before, consisting of picking up rocks, shooting balloons, and arranging blocks, among others. But to spice things up, the developers added an additional type of task, delivering these idiots with cartoon-sized backpacks to their buddies across the environment. At first, it's kind of fun, but it becomes so incredibly awful, adding so much unnecessary padding to an already gargantuan game that I can just barely contain my rage having collected every single one. It is effectively impossible to do without an interactive map, going one by one, checking each individual seed as you progress. so tedious and repetitive, it's completely natural that the first thing everybody did in this game is start torturing them. Alright, that's enough preschool class. It's time to talk some real talk. This game is outrageously exhausting to complete, and to be honest, I would never recommend anyone to actually go through the process of doing it. The rewards for completing this game are not even close to worth it. But if you hate yourself like I do, here is everything you need to do in order to obtain that tasty 100%. The first and most obvious thing to do is just to explore the world at your own pace and complete the main story. There are 23 main quests in the game, 2 of which will be forever incomplete in your adventure log. Once you stomp Ganondorf, your save file will get a star marking your achievement. You'll also unlock the map completion percentage at the bottom right corner of the map, as well as the progress tracker for all the quests in the adventure log. As you complete the main story, you'll also unlock various memories, these are my favorite parts, that give players a glimpse into key events throughout the recent past and the Imprisoning War. There are 18 memories in total, 11 from the Dragon Tears main quest, plus a bonus one once you find all 11, and the rest are all from story progression. Viewing all the memories from the Dragon Tears unlocks the true ending of the game, where the gang bids Minoru a final farewell and Zelda gives a rousing monologue asking the sages to stand with her. In addition to the main quests and memories, the adventure log tracks a total of 230 additional quests. Jesus Christ. This consists of 60 side adventures, 31 shrine quests, and 139 side quests. Side adventures are the most significant addition here, essentially being more complex side quests that typically net you more interesting and valuable rewards, like key items or unique side stories for characters. Finally, to round out this section of the list, there are also 22 character profiles that give you an overview of the main characters in Tears of the Kingdom. You will unlock these naturally as you play through the main story and complete some of the more involved side adventures throughout the game. Okay, let's talk about 100% map completion. The first thing you'll likely do is to locate and activate all 15 Skyview towers, which unlock portions of the surface and sky maps. These are not as simple as the Sheikah towers back in Breath of the Wild, as many will require you to complete a short puzzle before you're actually able to activate them. Once you have your map fully unlocked, you have to hunt down and complete all of the Shrines of Light. The developers thought that 120 shrines was for babies, so in this game, we get to complete 152 of them. 120 on the surface and 32 in the sky. Each shrine will reward you with the Blessing of Light, that when brought to a goddess statue can be traded for heart containers or stamina upgrades. You can have a total of 40 hearts or 3 full stamina wheels in this game, but not both. I personally chose to go all in on the stamina, because to me it's a much more valuable resource. But if you ever change your mind, you can always go back to the horn statue in the ruined hidden passage under Lookout Landing if you want to swap. Once you complete the 152nd Shrine of Light, you unlock the Shrine Explorer side quest. This quest guides you back to the Temple of Time on the Great Sky Island, where you receive a chest that contains the Ancient Hero's aspect, a full body armor set containing the spirit of a hero who once saved Hyrule, enveloping Link in the guise of a Zonai. Not gonna lie, it looks horrifying. I mean, it makes you look like an actual monstrosity, and I for sure never wore it. Here's a little 100% bonus for you. You'll also have to discover every single treasure chest in each of the shrines. Once you collect every chest, you'll unlock a small icon next to the shrine's name. You'll also have to locate all 120 light roots to fully dispel the darkness of the depths. Once you do, you'll get a message letting you know that you found all of the light roots, and you'll also receive a Dispelling Darkness medal to commemorate the achievement. Fun fact: we all know that the light roots naturally reflect all of the locations of the shrines on the surface. But did you also know that the names of the light roots mirror the names of the shrines? Ooh. Caves are a new addition to Tears of the Kingdom, and if you want to complete your map, you'll have to locate all of them across the Great Sky Island and Hyrule's surface. Caves will contain a new type of creature called a Booba Frog, which when defeated, drops a collectible known as a Booble Gem. Each individual cave system has one Booble Frog hiding within it, and you'll know when you found it when you see a check mark on the cave's icon on the map. A cave can have multiple entrances though, and you'll need to find each one of them to get to 100%. There are 147 booble frogs in the game, with 193 unique cave entrances to discover. As you progress through the game, you'll eventually run into Kilton, who also happens to have a brother named Colton. Colton dreams of becoming a Satori, and naturally, the only way to achieve this is through eating large amounts of booble gems. Once you complete Colton's side quest, he will ask you to trade him booble gems in exchange for unique, monster-themed rewards. You'll need a total of 46 booble gems to unlock all of Colton's rewards, including all 5 monster masks and the mystic armor set. Once you receive all the rewards, Colton is still not a Satori. Go figure. So he'll just ask you to find all the remaining booble gems anyways. Once you do, he completely demolishes them, finally achieving his dream and rewarding you with his handmade fabric before scampering off. If you go back to Terrytown and let Kilton know, he'll express his happiness for his brother and move his shop to the top of Satori Mountain. Wells are another new addition to Tears of the Kingdom, and there are 58 of them in the game. They're typically located within towns and stables, but you'll find them in abandoned ruins as well. Finding all of the wells will complete the quest, Where are the Wells? And speaking with the quest giver Farah, Hyrule's resident well enthusiast, will reward you with a key item, the All's Well. I mean, I told you guys there aren't really any good rewards. But we'll keep chugging along. I may have mentioned this in a previous section, but you will also need to collect all 1,000 Korok seeds, spread out between the surface and the sky. You'll need to collect a total of 421 Korok seeds in order to max out your inventory. This will give you a total of 14 bow slots, 20 shield slots, and 20 weapon slots. After collecting all 1,000 though, the final Korok will tell you to speak with Hestu to celebrate all of the Koroks being found. When you do speak to Hestu, he will reward you with Hestu's gift, a glorious piece of caca that actually has one additional layer compared to Breath of the Wild. If that wasn't enough of a reward, he will also perform a dance for you anytime you want, even giving you the choice between the Breath of the Wild dance or the Tears of the Kingdom dance. Totally worth it. Finally, to make sure your map is fully juiced, you'll have to discover all 35 chasms that connect the surface to the depths, all 30 device dispensers, and all named locations across Hyrule, of which there are like a million. And before you ask, yes, absolutely, you have to make sure you obtain every item from each dispenser so that the list appears fully complete on the map. This process can be outrageously overwhelming and frustrating. So if you're like me, going bananas, sitting at 99.95%, drop a comment, and I'll try to go over some potential locations that were tough for me to find to hopefully get you the last couple that you missed. Yeah, obviously that's still not everything, so let's talk about a few final miscellaneous things to complete. Across Hyrule, you'll find various crystal refineries that will let you max out your energy cell in exchange for crystallized charges. It'll cost you 4,500 crystallized charges to get you the maximum 8 full energy cells, plus an additional layer for all 8, for a total of 16 energy cells. You'll also need to complete the Hyrule Compendium, which in this game has a total of 509 entries. This would take an absolutely absurd amount of time, but the good news is you can purchase almost every entry from Robbie for 100 rupees each. The only one that you can't purchase is entry 243, the Sun Pumpkin. This picture can only be obtained when you complete the Homegrown and Hateno side quest, after completing the events of the mayoral election. Once completed, a new variation of pumpkin will grow in the field towards the front of Hateno Village, which you can take a picture of to finally complete the compendium and receive your reward of Robbie's fabric. Did you know that Tears of the Kingdom has armor? Yeah! There are 135 unique pieces of armor in the game, plus the ability to wear your Hylian hood down when you speak to Cece in Hateno Village. Over 100 individual pieces of armor can be upgraded in this game at one of the 4 great fairy fountains, so you'll be seeing this a lot. You'll need to farm about 79,000 rupees and a downright preposterous amount of materials to fully upgrade everything in the game. Things like star fragments or dragon materials that you can get while walking on the back of a dragon. Yeah, this is the game of the year. Remember my guy Addison? Well, he appears in 81 individual locations all across Hyrule, and once you help him put up his sign all 81 times, he rewards you with his own unique fabric. Speaking of paraglider fabrics, there are a total of 29 unique, non-amiibo designs to discover through completing side quests, helping NPC characters, or bringing reference photos to Sage in a shop in Hateno Village. As you explore the sky, you'll discover various chests that contain Sage's wills, which allow you to strengthen the vows granted to you by the Sages, and old maps, which depict the locations of rare treasures in the depths. There are 20 Sage's wills and 31 old maps to discover in total. In the depths, you'll discover various abandoned mines and Yiga bases, which will grant you schema stones and Yiga schematics respectively. There are a total of 12 schema stones and 34 Yiga schematics in the game. If you're missing a schema stone, try checking out the Shrine of Resurrection for a little secret. Monster medals. Yep, monster medals are back, baby. If you speak to Growlins in the Lookout Landing bunker, he'll start to mention large and unusual monsters appearing in the overworld. Once you complete all of his side quests, he'll start tracking exactly how many mini-bosses you've defeated. Once you've defeated each mini-boss at least once, he'll award you a monster medal based on each of the 6 mini-bosses that appear in the game. Another new mechanic in this game is the recipe list. Every meal you cook or receive will be stored in a recipe list accessible from your inventory. You'll need to cook all 228 recipes to register all of them in your collection. The last thing that we need to do to complete this goddamn game is to register all 3 unique horses and collect 40 pony points required to obtain all permanent unlocks at the stables, which includes saddles, bridles, and a total increase to 10 horse registration slots. It took me a total of 225 hours to 100% Tears of the Kingdom, completing the adventure log, discovering everything on the map, completing the compendium, and obtaining every key item in the game. Having done so, I can wholeheartedly say that this is an incredible game. My honest opinion is that this is a game not meant to be completed. But if you're like me and get this intrinsic satisfaction from doing everything there is to possibly do, you'll develop an even deeper appreciation for the love and the care the developers put into this one-of-a-kind world. The story caught me off guard, but ended up being one of my favorites in the series. The gameplay was so flexible and engaging, consistently pushing me to think, I wonder if I can do this. The side quests were over-implemented, but still enhanced the overall experience and improved my immersion by showing Link's actions having tangible impacts on the world. And the ending was without a doubt the most amazing ending in any Zelda game I've played up to this point, making me sit here like a little kid with a huge smile on my face, especially when Link finally caught Zelda in the end. That being said though, a lot of the magic and the joy does go away when you take on this challenge, and the rewards in no way make up for that, so I definitely do not recommend completing this game. The main discourse about Tears of the Kingdom devolved to, is it better than Breath of the Wild? And I think this is the wrong question to be asking. Comparing this game to its predecessor is expected, but it's also a disservice because this implies that it doesn't stand on its own. I personally think that Tears of the Kingdom isn't a perfect game, but it's a game that I absolutely loved, and it's a game that doesn't need to be compared to any other entries in the series. If you haven't played it yet, I couldn't recommend it enough. I wanted to kick this channel off with a bang, going through my thoughts and experience 100%ing this gigantic game. But more than anything, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Leave a comment with your thoughts, or if I'm an idiot and missed something important, or if you're struggling finding the last few things like I was. And if you're also a madman that loves completing games, keep your eyeballs peeled for future videos. Thanks for listening. Alright, love you, bye.